Hello and welcome to another portrait practice demonstration, and I've got this mid-journey image just in sort of raw burnt sienna colours, so I shall aim to stick with that. And I've started with a accurate drawing, a traced drawing. I did draw it freehand in my sketchbook for practice, and I shall talk you through what I'm doing as I do it, and good luck if you decide to give it a go as well. So I think I'm just going to go for painting this in burnt sienna, and I use a bit of blue for the background just to grey it off. So I've picked this image because I thought it was quite a good image from the point of view of just looking at shapes rather than lots of detail. So that's going to define the hat. Bit of water in there, and as ever we don't mind having a few explosions on here and a very loose painting, but we need a little bit of control. The hat will just disappear into there. Let's go slightly more blue. We'll go grey in that corner. Wash that down there. Again, I'll use some blue. Side of the face, because that's probably going to be white, the paper there maybe, or just a light stain. And we'll just warm that up under there. And connect it back up to this side. And I'll just go a little bit darker, so slightly thicker paint here, just to really define that hat, the front there. I'll just let it melt into the background. I'm just using a large sable brush at the moment, but you could use any brush that holds plenty of water. Melt into there. While that's damp, probably a good idea just to, a lot of this will just wash off and we'll lose all the strength. Not sure what sort of hat she's got on, but it's just practice at the end of the day. It really doesn't matter. So I might paint the neck, just do a wash over this while it's damp here, just so it fades into the bottom. And then I shall dry that off and see what we can do with some details. Switch to a slightly smaller brush for a little bit more control. Maybe a bit of yellow ochre into there. So it's still predominantly water, a little bit of yellow ochre, and that burnt sienna. So this is going to be the lightest wash for the skin tone. I think we'll get rid of the white of the paper. I'm just going to wet the whole lot. Much, I think, just to make the paper wet. And then some burnt sienna. This is on Saunders and Waterford paper, but I need to get some more Bohong paper. I do like the Bohong for the portraits. So I'm just going to run that down there and just let it do its thing. See what it does. We need a sharp edge there, so I shall do that in a moment when it's dried. So it's probably all darker under the hat there, and this side of the eye. But it was that little bit of light there on the cheek, which is probably a bit of reflected light hitting the side there. Do a wash on the ear. While we're waiting for that to dry a little bit, maybe a little bit on the neck. And some more burnt sienna. So slightly thicker paint now, because we don't want it to move about too much on the paper now. And the paper is just damp. So I should be able to get a sharp edge there, which is what I want. And there's a little highlight on the top of the eyelid there. This describes the shape. Just paint over that eyebrow, slightly darker under the brow of the head. Starting to dry a little bit too much, so I just soften that with the brush. Dripping water everywhere. And I didn't draw the nose in, but hopefully I've got enough detail there. Forgot to draw the bridge of the nose, but hopefully there's enough information there. So that's going to just come around here. Feather that edge a little bit. Probably played around with that a little bit too much. And slightly darker again, and I'm going to add just a touch of red, just a small amount, where it warms up a little bit up in there. It's still wet, the paper, or it's damp, it's not wet. The difference. If the paper was wet, I wouldn't get these controlled areas. It might seem a little bit on the dark side, but it will dry a little bit lighter. Put in those shapes there, and we'll get that hair in as well. Let's just soften that, make less of the ear. So the hair, maybe some burnt umber and a bit of green. Could use Viridian or whatever green you've got. And I should put a bit of blue in that as well. I just want a dark value, but I shall add a bit of red, keep it warm. Nice and dark. And this is still damp. This little red bit below it, so that will soften and mix into there. But I've gone really strong with this dark. I need to get it done first time if I can. I need a sharp edge in here along that ear and along the neck. So again, by having fairly thick paint, that will help with that. And back into some burnt sienna for the underside of the hat, which again, if we get that in while it's damp, we're going to get some nice connection. I've got that dark. So I can't really see what's going on here, but it's just float it away into the background. Bit of water. Let's take a bit of blue. No idea what that is. Let it all run down. It's something is what it is. And then darker here just to make all of this stand out just a bit more. Again. So it's we're waiting for that to dry. Work on the neck. Again, a bit of burnt sienna, touch of alizarin crimson for a bit of warmth. Under the jawline there, which my drawing is still visible. just take a little bit of yellow ochre. Put that into there. Let's just pretend that's a shirt. Bit of water, run down. It's going to be arty, isn't it? I think I'll dry this off before I get totally lost. Could go darker with this, so I'm just going to use this burnt umber, I think, just to, much as anything, just to connect it to the hair slightly better, I think. And then just feather it with water. And a lot of the time with watercolour, this happens where things that you just do it too weak, or it looks right when you put it on, but when it dries, it becomes too weak. It means you've got to go over it again, which you lose the freshness. So with practice, you get to see how strong it needs to be, but you still get it wrong, as I've got it wrong. A connection through there. Again, too many hard edges there, so just soften that. And I remember when I did my sketch, there was a little bit of a shading in here where the mouth is obviously curved, which I didn't get in the trace, so I think I will do that in future. Before I draw these portraits, if I'm going to trace for the painting, which I probably will, I will draw it freehand first. Eventually I'll get to the point where my freehand sketch will be good enough to paint from. Takes time. There's a fairly crisp edge on that lip there. Just getting curves around there. And I think the thing with the lips is just don't make too much of it. Again, I want a dark, so I'm mixing red, green, brown. Just the corner of the mouth, the dark in there. So while we've got this dark on here, let's just test how dry this is. Yep, that's damp. I use a bit of white gouache for the pupil on the eye. So Use a bit of water, or just a damp brush really, not water, just a damp brush, just to soften a lot of that. And we'll put a bit of that skin colour for the white of the eye. Fold of the eyelid, and then it gets darker. Eyebrow. And a few edges. Then we'll connect that to this side. Darken all of this for the moment. And we use a little bit of blue just to create a very watery grey. I might be wrong, but it looks like it's quite a cool note there and in there. Dark again, same with green, red. So the green and the red just make quite a nice dark. Just gonna suggest those eyelashes, but just paint them all as one. Straight onto this eye here. Possibly a bit on the damp side. To wait for that to dry a little bit. Work on the nose. I suppose that's the thing. Good thing about portrait. There's always somewhere else you can work on while we're waiting for the bits to dry. There's the dark under there, and then it goes much warmer. That bit of red and brown, but it's still quite dark. Shadow under the nose. I messed the nose up as well in my freehand drawing. Noses are tricky. Let's just lift a little bit of that paint up into here. And again, it's probably like a lot of this, just don't overdo it. Even more sort of towards a yellow. Again, that's perhaps getting that reflected light. Curves around. Nostril doesn't look quite right. Let's just lift a bit of Sometimes if you just get it to something that it looks acceptable, just go with that. If you're in the same position I am at the moment with portraits, it's only just practice. So don't worry about it. Again, create a dark. And the reason I'm using the red and the green, I know I've mentioned this before on other portraits I've done on the membership, is it keeps it all nice and warm. The blue can start to create a bit of a dirty looking colour, which can be a problem, particularly if we're not pros at portraiture as yet. The dark under the eye. Again, this eye, you can just soften quite a bit because we probably want more focus on that eye. Soften all of that. I think the softer features are more convincing than all the harsh lines and so on. So I think the case of quick while you're ahead, that's looking okay, I think. So there's a few darks under the neck. So that's nice, strong, thick paint. And then I'll use thinner paint, red and brown. Connect the dots. Draw a line a little bit. Softer edge. Just taking a quick photo of the portrait just in case I destroy it now, but I think on the reference there are supposed to be some earrings here, which could be quite good because it gives me something to put on the other side. So let's just make something up. So we can go across, and it was going to be something like that. And I'm thinking As we've got a lot of orange, what about a blue stripe on the hat? Go terribly wrong. Or maybe not. A little bit darker over this side. Bit of a dark in between the earrings there, just to make us understand what's actually there, but what else is going to be dangling from someone's ears. And we can also now give it a title, Lady with Blue Striped Hat. So good luck if you decide to give this a go. I shall share the images and the so on the members forum and on the tier 2 membership. So until next time, bye for now.